Craving More, a CrossFit Crave podcast where we find motivation through obstacles, resistance, and everyday life.
Hey, welcome back to Craving More with your co-host, CJ.
Hey.
Now, over there, not here, and Matt.
I know, this is weird.
CJ, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. This is weird. One, it's been a long time since we recorded a podcast.
A very long time.
So,
how long has it been?
6 months or
like a couple months. Yeah.
A couple of months, maybe not six. Maybe.
Shame on us. We need to quit doing that.
I know.
We need to quitting podcasts.
I know. I had I don't know if I told you this or not. I had a guy contact. I was talking to an individual with Compete Force out of Columbus, and I apologize. He's probably going to listen. I forget his name. Sorry.
Oh.
Are you the one with that Craving More podcast from CrossFit Craving? I'm like, yeah. Oh, man. Why don't you do those? I'm like, huh. We have listeners?
It's not just our moms.
Might have just been.
Oh, that's really cool. But yeah, so we definitely have to be more active with this,
Go ahead and talk. CJ.
And then we also today have Ian and Debbie joining us. Welcome, guys.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thanks. I was like, they're not going to say anything, and I'm just going to...
Ian, are you going to talk at all today?
Of course I will talk. That's like my number one thing to do is talk.
I paid Ian to not talk.
That's about impossible to do.
Hey, CJ, before we jump into today's topic, give us an update. Where are you at, man? Normally we're together when we do these, and we are not together any longer.
I know. You guys look all good and official over there, and I'm wearing AirPods and sitting on a camping chair. Ridiculous. We're in...
Yeah, I like the strategically placed tank tops back there.
Yeah, you got some decals back there.
Yeah, no, I have to represent for you guys. Otherwise you just look at my dirty wall. So we're in Athens, Ohio. Lissa, my wife, is getting her doctorate in physical therapy. So we're down here for 2 years, or well, I guess till whenever she gets that.
Getting her
and then
in physical therapy, right?
Yeah, she's a smart cookie.
Jeez. Can we invite her on the podcast at some point?
Yeah, I would love to hear her try to talk in the camera.
Yeah.
What?
Is she home now, or is she studying?
No, she's at Bible study.
Oh, man, did we pull you from Bible study?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
So, look at you preaching good things, Matt.
We will
pulling me from Jesus.
Goodness and do burpees.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, but we're talking about something that's good. That's biblical. It's giving back to our community, I think, tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we wanted to restart the podcast or jump back into another podcast here. Somewhat at the prompting of our young man to my immediate left here, Ian. But I think it's perfect timing because we want to talk about our Expanding Horizons program. And I think this will probably be one of a couple of podcasts I think we can do in the next, I'll say, upcoming several months as some things happen. What do you guys think? What do you think, CJ? Yeah?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think we touched on it a little bit as well in other podcasts, just like kind of bringing it up or what we do. But obviously recently there's been some really cool things that have came about with this. So I think it's great that we get into it a little bit farther and kind of show everyone what you're actually doing there,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what we're doing. You were a big part of it when you were in town. So it's not what we're
Oh,
doing. What we're doing.
I want to keep up with it though,
Yeah.
Try to find a way to do it remotely.
Yeah. Well, there may be an opportunity for you to do it in your own box at some point in time here.
Right. Yeah. And that's the goal, right? So, I mean, especially with this podcast too, we can kind of teach everyone, show everyone what works, what doesn't work, and how we kind of did everything to kind of make it spread it as much as we can,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we're going to talk about expanding horizons. Do you want to, or Debbie, did we introduce Debbie?
Yeah, I think so.
I tried to, and she just said,
I was moving.
Hi, thank you. Question mark? That's what Debbie was saying.
So, we want to talk about expanding horizons. So who can give us a really good breakdown of what expanding horizons is? Debbie, do you want to do that?
And everybody points to me. So Expanding Horizons is a program. We're in our 4th year of development of the program, where we have student athletes who prior to coming to CrossFit may have never been an athlete, but they are kids who have had some kind of issue in the past that has landed them in the probation world. And as part of their probation requirements, in order to promote health and wellness overall, to keep them out of probation and out of incarceration for hopefully the rest of their lives, they are court-ordered to come to CrossFit Crave and counseling as part of the probation requirements. And so these students come to us 4 days a week for a class that is specifically for them, doing the same workouts as all of our other athletes do in our other classes. But we keep this class small so that these kids can interact with each other. They also work out with their probation officers. And we do have a few select athletes who work out with them as well, to serve as mentors in the class and outside in the community.
Yeah, so thank you. That's a really good,
Debbie,
really good.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Exactly.
You don't even have notes in front of you.
All I got was a text that said, be there.
Be there. We're gonna... So she hit on several points there. She went through the explanation, and I think from the beginning of that breakdown is the probation. What this really means is it's the juvenile, so they're under 18, that are on either have been to or on the path to, if they don't change their ways, go to the juvenile detention center, basically. Call it, the probation court calls it the, teen prison, basically, or juvenile prison. So the kids that are on probation, they're in the court system. So they're already they've done something to cause their path to go in a route where the court had to intervene.
Right.
Yeah. If they were above 18, above 19, they would be incarcerated in, a county jail or something along those lines, had they had done the same offense potentially. And some of them aren't, the offenses aren't what you would think about being a criminal or that type of thing, stealing or doing any damage like that. It could be truancy. It could be, home issues where there's mental or physical abuse. And one of the ways they can keep these kids safe is, hey, let's put them on county watched probation, and that keeps them connected with somebody that can be with them and watch them constantly.
Right. Provides structure.
Exactly. Provides structure and keeps them safe, keeps them going to school, keeps them going in the right path. So there's a lot of reasons why, an individual can find themselves on juvenile probation. So I think the stigma is, oh, you've really done something bad. You're a thief, or you, and that's just not the case with a lot of these youth. The sad part is something in their lives has happened that's been really traumatic, and they're dealing with trauma, and they outly, they're what do you want to say? They only have one way to express that trauma, and sometimes that gets them in trouble.
Right.
Before they come to this program. So, like Debbie said, the court deems these kids that they come into a structure, and they say, hey, you need to go to counseling. So they send them with counselors. We don't get all of the kids that are on probation.
No.
Some of the kids, their, let's say their aggression levels are too high. The court says, hey, we've got options. You can go to counseling, which we're going to put you on, and you can go to CrossFit, and we're going to court order that. But in some cases, the kids have to go through like an evaluation because maybe because of the trauma that they've been through, they're physically aggressive, and it wouldn't work well in a situation where there's a lot of noise, a lot of people, a lot of direction that's been given to them. So they're like, okay, you're not ready for that yet. We need to do this. Right. So they're taking a different route.
Right. So just like in school, you have a student that has special needs. You have a team of teachers who come in as their support system, and they evaluate the student and they write out a plan. And then they choose the best route possible for the kid. These kids have a different type of special need. And so their support system, which becomes the judicial system, the probation officers, the counselor, come together. They do evaluations. They meet as a team and decide what is the best route to help these kids heal physically, emotionally, mentally.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one of the things we wanted to cover right out of the gate is why CrossFit, and how did CrossFit become involved with Mercer County Court, and kind of how that took off almost 3.5-4 years ago. Now, because I think we're in the middle of our beginning of our 4th year. Right. Something like that should be right around 4th. Yeah, I think it's right around 4th. Yeah. So they had tried several things prior to CrossFit. The probation department here in Mercer County had the forethought to say, we know that physical exercises change the chemical makeup of the brain, and it gives them a way to release some of that pent-up energy, in some cases pent-up aggression that they would have if they weren't, they were just home playing video games or stuck in a bad situation. So they started with a run club.
Right. Did a running club for a summer, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that moved into, they thought, well, running's great, but not all of the kids are in the same physical shape, right? And some kids are faster and some kids are slower. And you're already putting these kids in a stressful situation. Now to separate them on a running path wasn't advisable, right?
Right. Because, they had 3 to 4 probation officers running with them. You have more than 3 to 4 kids. So they're going to end up spaced out on a path. And there are other people on that path. And so you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you kind of lose track. And,
right.
It's hard to keep them all visually in the same area, right? So they went to another facility, right. I wouldn't say a CrossFit style, but a similar class style setting process where they could go work out. Right. But they just, I think their comments were they were just looking for something more.
Mm-hmm. It didn't quite meet all of the needs that they felt like they had, but they couldn't really put their finger on what wasn't being met. It was just some things missing. We can't figure it out, but it's not being fulfilled here.
Right. So I received a phone call or a text message. I've got to go back and ask Jen Contreras, but Jen Contreras reached out and she goes, "Hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. We'd like to sit down and talk. You may see if you can help us." And that's literally, I said, "Oh, okay, sure, come on by." And they brought a young lady by, one individual. This was 4 years ago. So this individual has graduated out of high school and doing well, and has a child of her own. And
stable relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they brought the individual in and said, "Hey, could you?" She's a great-hearted individual, but she is a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
Nobody could quite get through to her.
Right.
When she first came in.
Right.
When she first came into probation. So, CJ, you were with us, I think.
Yep.
In that time frame. And young lady come in and we were just going to do a visit. We're like, "Hey, let's just come in and walk around the building, say hello." And we did that. She didn't say a word for the first 20 or 30 minutes, probably. Were you
I was not here.
So we took a tour. The gym was a little smaller, than it is now, so it didn't take very long. We walked around and then we sat on one of the couches. At that time, I think I had a couch up there. Is that old brown dark brown one, if you guys remember. And we sat up there, and she really wouldn't say a word. And Jen's like, I think you really enjoy this. And so I looked at her and I said, hey, I said, you're carrying a pretty big chip today. And she just kind of looked at me funny. And I said, well, I get it. I get what you're doing. And I get where you're at. And I don't know if she said, I would have to ask her, she audibly said the words, but her posture looked at me and says, you have no idea what I'm going through. You don't know. How could you know? You're a stranger, you're an adult, you have no idea. So I gave her a little of my story. Not a lot. I gave her my story. I said, listen, you're one of your parents, in jail, in prison right now, right? She looked at me and nodded. I said, yeah, my mom died in prison 3 years ago on Mother's Day, day after Mother's Day. She kind of looked at me and I said, she went to prison when I was 12. And this is why she went to prison. And this is what I witnessed, the reason why she went to prison. And so I don't know what you're going through, but I know what it's like to go through a mess. And let me tell you what I did. I took the wrong path. Probably similar to what you're doing right now. And then it was like a light switch for her. Oh, and then her mouth just wouldn't stop running. Just talk. Jen, I can remember Jen Contreras going, huh, okay. And then she came the first class. We went through intros with her, just one-on-one. Your mom actually helped go through that process.
I was going to say, she talked to me about that the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yep, helped her walk through that process. She came, that was the summer. She went through the 3 summer months and was hooked. And that's all it took.
Right. And I think part of the reason that she was chosen was, like you said, nobody could crack her. Mm-hmm. The other part was physically, she was probably in the most need for physical activity.
Yeah.
And so even the probation officers, they knew very little about CrossFit other than the stereotype of it's hard, like the kids said this weekend, we throw weight around.
It's hard, you get hurt.
Yeah, we throw weight around and kill ourselves. Like that's the definition, right? Mm-hmm. And so they thought, okay, here's our test. We're going to pick one of the least likely cases who could come out of here successful.
Right.
Stereotypically, you give me a lineup of 10 people, personality wise or whatever, and physically, let's pick which one will go to CrossFit. And so they picked the one who they thought, if they can reach this one, then we all can come over.
That's right. Yeah, it would be a game changer. And it was. I mean, she latched on to the atmosphere. The work was still difficult for her.
Oh, for sure.
No question about it. But she walked into a setting, I think, that was different than what she was used to. At home or at school, she was accepted as being her, just her. Not compared to others, but expected and looked upon as, hey, you're an individual just like I am. You're going to do this workout at your pace, and you're going to be treated just like everyone else is treated. And I think that was foreign to her.
For sure.
Right out of the gate.
Right. So she also had a lot of change in her life. I don't know if it was during that summer or that following school year. She was also yanked out of her home and put into foster care.
Yep.
So you talk about everything changing at once for her. I can't imagine the overwhelming, feelings that she had every day.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, it got to a point where later in that summer, it might have been even that next year, she would use CrossFit as a safe haven, CrossFit Crave, where, she would be, something would go wrong during the day, and she was really mentally just on that edge, and she needed a safe place to go. And she would ask, Mrs. Darris, Coach Darris, can I come to CrossFit on an off time? Not a time that she was supposed to be there. Right. And she would literally just come in and sit.
Yeah, I was going to say for like a whole summer, like she would just randomly come in and out and be there, even if she wasn't working out. Like we'd be working out in the back. She'd be sitting up there and talking like about $90.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because she found that was a safe haven. So that was kind of the start of the program. And then once we got through that, we got to the start of school, we met in with the probation department as a whole. Angie Gale, Jen Contreras came in, we sat down and said, okay, what would this look like if we put together a program for the rest of your kids? Let's give that a shot. So we dedicated our own class time for them right after school. We set up, a time where they could be in the building where no one else was around. It was one of our off times, one of our normal class periods, and they started coming. Okay. And the rest, quite frankly, is history. Here it is. Yeah, here we are on year 4. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
So that's.
I didn't know they picked their hardest case.
There's no question. Yeah. And I think they would.
But that makes a lot of sense too. Like, we both want that, right? So we want to make sure that what we're doing is will work, mm-hmm. right? And they don't want to send someone that is like not so complex of a case or whatever, and then it doesn't help anyone else. So it's like both the ends. But really, I mean, ever since that, like, it's just taken off so much more, like, and it has been working, So that's awesome. What a great test.
I know Austin's been on this before. Mm-hmm. Austin and I both worked at the pool in town. We've both seen a lot of the kids that have been through this program go from prior to coming to CrossFit and being that stereotypical kind of probation kid and just being touchy on some parts and not really listening. And a lot of them that have come through here, I know since I'm like closer to their age, and you've seen a change in a lot of them that I've had to deal with through becoming a lifeguard, and then all the way up through seeing them go through all these classes. And the change in a lot of them is absolutely like astronomical. Because I remember having to sit out so many of them right beside my lifeguard chair, and all of them just like griping at me like, "Oh, you never let me have any fun." I was like, "I'm just doing my job. Like, yeah, this is what I have to do."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but changes their mentality, and it gives them a sense of self-worth. I think is the biggest part of it, because they see the community setting and they're like, "Oh, I'm accepted there," and normally I'm not accepted. That's not normal.
Yeah, I would have loved to have this version of the pool way back. It'd been great. It'd been so easy. I could have just sat there and got his hand and just watched.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So since the beginning, we've had, and just cover the kind of the numbers, and that will lead into kind of what's happening with Expanding Horizons here recently in the last, I'll call it several months, and what could be expanding really, really quickly if everything goes well. But some of the numbers since the beginning, we've had 57 student athletes, juvenile probation individuals come through CrossFit in the last 4 years. Last 3, this is the beginning of the 4th year. The demographics of those success rates and revicidity is a word that I'm not even 100% sure I know what it means, but that's the revicidity rate is 75%. So 75% of those 57 individuals, when they're off probation, they're tracked up to a year. So what that means is you're on probation today and you do everything you need to, you satisfy the court requirements for probation. If there's restitution, you've paid that back, you've done your community service, all of that stuff. They will release you from probation. So you're off, even though you're still under 18, but you're not tracked.
You served your time.
Yeah, you served your time. Yeah, and it's just like an adult goes to prison, and you're in prison or jail for a month, a week, a year, whatever it is, and prison time's up. Okay, you served your time, you go back to the community. So they track the kids upwards of a year. They have to. It's a court mandate. The reoffend rate. Yes. Let's use it that way.
Yeah, that was about the best definition, because I tried to look it up right there, and it's just like a comeback rate.
Yeah. So the comeback rate, the revicidity, or the reoffend rate in juvenile probation is really high.
Right.
It's not that probation's not successful. It's just prior to this, there wasn't something that the kids could find that changed them mentally and physically and they had a community that they could consistently come back to, or they were taught the values. So the probation department, they work their tail off to do the best they can, but they just can't do it all on their own. So they can't have the kids 24/7, right? So the reoffender rate is pretty high.
Right.
Since the beginning. Go ahead.
Just like you have adults. You know, if you have somebody in jail right now and you look them up, there's a record. You know, a lot of people, it may be their first time, but for the majority, I would say, I'm stereotyping, but there's going to be, this is not the first
habitual
time. It becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So they sometimes their home environment doesn't change, so they get off of probation, and they're right back.
So all that structure that they had on probation is gone.
Yep.
And they're right back to the environment they were in before they landed on probation.
Exactly. Since the start of the program with CrossFit, there's a couple of things that's involved CrossFit, and then there's mental health counseling that goes along with that. But the reoffend rate, the revicidity rate, if you will, 75% of the kids that have come through our program have not reoffended outside of a year. So they track them up to the year, and then they let them go. They've not come back. They've not reoffended, which is unheard of successful rate for this, which is great. It's, you know, one of the reasons why they keep coming back to us, right, to help support the kids, and let's give them the structure and let's make them successful. So those are some of the numbers. Now there's a lot of numbers inside of that. You know, how many kids are you know, not in their natural home, they're in a foster adopted parent home, or you know, some of them, you know, there's drug rehabilitation numbers there too, and that type of thing. So there's several numbers that play into that. But I think there's two really single success stories, and that's they've received counseling, they're going to CrossFit. And the combination of those two turns out successful at a rate of 75%, which is really good numbers.
Yeah. And I want to point out too, so like, I don't think we've ever really talked about this in general, but like, we don't have a special class or anything for them, or we're not making a special program. Like the only real like thing that we had to do was just create another class time. So we're still doing the same workout and everything that everyone else is doing, right? So it's not even that like we're doing anything other than them just like working out. And then you'll have like at the end of class, you might have the occasional little pep talk or something if someone says something, or you see an action that you don't like that you wouldn't talk to with like a normal class or whatever. But outside of that, it's only just a normal CrossFit class.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. There is it's a normal class. It's the same workout that all of the other classes are doing that day. The temperament, I would say, in the heart of the coaches is what makes the biggest difference. Like you said, a lot of time what we're feeding into these kids is how do we help them physically and mentally change their game. And then that's where that, you know, we may give them a pep talk at the end of class, say about, hey, here's what's on our heart today. Let us share where we're at. We may not do that on a normal class basis, right?
Right.
And maybe we should, because quite frankly,
they probably need it too.
Let's go through. The adults have gone through the same thing. We just don't know it because they don't share it, or they're not court mandated to come to us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, like, it doesn't even have to be like the little pep talk at the end of class. Like, just, I mean, you can walk by and just kind of whisper something to someone, like, and that usually has more impact anyway, because they're not like embarrassed or whatever that you called them out, right? Like if you just walk over there and just say something little, and that, I mean, that helps a lot too. Yeah. But I wouldn't go up to Ian and say that. I just call it him out in front of class.
You just say it right in front of
anything. So we wanted to talk about a few things that's happened since the program began. You know, individually with kids graduating off probation, getting jobs, and how the community has helped that. So when we first started the program, and that's what we would suggest for most people wanting to start the program, you're going to have this as its own class, set aside from the rest of your class. Pick a time where you don't have a normal schedule, where you can bring these kids in typically right after school and give them an hour, because it's going to take some adaptation time for them to adjust to the setting, right?
I guess ours has always been at 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we've traditionally done the 3 o'clock time period, but it's just been
right after school helps a lot too, because they can, like, if you have to drive anyone over, they're already at the same spot. So if they all get home and then you have to try to coordinate that somehow, that's a lot more difficult.
That's right. Yep, definitely. So it's important to start that. We were having a conversation we were at the L1 seminar with 3 of those kids. We'll get to that in a minute. This weekend, we were talking to the flow master there, Joe DeGane, and we stressed to the point of, this is a great class to start. It's a great opportunity for the gyms, but here's some of the things you really need to look at first. One, create its own class, and don't have your general population in that class right out of the gate, because the stimulus enough is going to be somewhat cumbersome for the kids. Right. So their class set aside by them, you coach it. One of your coaches runs the class, and don't invite your general public yet.
Right. And the probation officers come and work out with the kids.
Exactly. And that Joe and the 3 guys that were running the L1, they were like, what? We're like, yeah, it's mandatory that the probation officers work out with the kids. Right. It's probably one of the single reasons it is a success. Right. Because it levels the playing field.
As we say, we usually have like 2 or 3 at all times. Jen,
Craig, and Andrew. Right.
Yeah, they're mostly always there.
So you think about an adult coming into a CrossFit class. I know for me, it was one of the most intimidating things I ever did, was walk through the door. Now you've got a kid who's been labeled, and just from that label, whether you know nothing about the kid, but they know you know their label, they think you think that of them. Now they're court ordered to go into a stereotypically tough place, and they're supposed to follow orders and sweat. Like, how do you make that environment conducive when you put everybody on the same level? Everybody's going to sweat together, including the adults.
That's right.
It's when the probation officers come in and class starts, they may have an issue to take care of before class starts with a kid that happened at school that day or before school happened that day. But once that time frame, that clock clicks over, they aren't the probation officer. They're an athlete, just like all the other athletes in that class.
That's right.
It is great to see the dynamic of that too. Like as it goes on, that you'll have like some of the probation kids just like yelling at Jen or something, like while she's like dying in a workout, and it's like that connection and that bond is forming so much stronger, and just over that, like naturally, it's naturally forming because they're all in the same playing field.
The respect pretty cool between both adults and kids completely changes.
Right. Yes.
And it gives them something to talk about.
For sure.
We all love, what's the number one thing CrossFitters do? CrossFit.
Talk about CrossFit.
Right. Just ask someone that's not a CrossFitter that lives with one.
Oh, yeah. Let's just be like, CrossFit, that's all you talk about.
That's right. So it gives them something to connect on at a different level. And we've heard that from the probation officers. They're like, hey, well, even some of the teachers that are either members of the gym or coaches of the gym, they're like, yeah, I was talking to such and such yesterday, and we're talking about our homework assignment. We're talking about this. And then guess what? It was, oh man, my legs are so sore. Remember that work? And it completely changes now the dynamic between a teacher and an athlete, or a teacher and a student, the probation officer and the pupil that's under probation. It just changes the game for them. It sees them on a different level. So, we always tell, we told the seminar staff this weekend, we're like, when we were explaining the program, because they were interested to know more about it, we're like, we take the badges when they walk. Now, we don't physically take their badges, but in a sense, when they come in the building, the badges come off, and they're our athletes, just like the probation kids, and we're in charge. And we always tell them, we tell the kids, we tell the officers, if they can survive in our community, meaning if they can get along with each other, if they can respect the community, they can have equality, they can be consistent with understanding human movement, taking directions from a coach. If they can survive in our community, they can survive in that community, the community that's outside of the box, what they're going back to when they leave us.
Right. And a lot of times it takes extra conversation. Okay, how do I, transfer this? For example, we talk about a deadlift. A deadlift, you keep, shoulders are back, flat back, all of that stuff. As soon as they begin to see, as they're here over time, they can tell somebody, hey, you're rounding your back during that. Or you feel I'm doing a deadlift and I can feel I don't have correct form. I need to stop, reevaluate. How am I going to deal with this heavy weight? They take that mentality. I'm going to stop, evaluate where I'm at. How do I fix it and do it again? Into a difficult situation. Mm-hmm. I'm headed into this situation. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to deal with it. Whatever the case is, I'm going to stop, reevaluate. How do I deal with the situation and do it again?
Exactly. Yeah. And the situation that she's talking about could be awful compared to what we know.
Right.
Historically, drugs and abuse, and it's not what you would want any of your kids or siblings to have to go through. That's for sure. So that's a part of it, right? Start that community. Start it with your own class. Probation officers need to work out with the kids. That levels the playing field. That makes it a success. And then about a year into it, we said, hey, how about we invite some of our normal athletes, or normal 5:30 goers to the 3 o'clock class. But we cued that with, they have to understand they're coming into a mentoringship environment, or they just can't come. It's not, hey, I'm going to come to this class today because I've got the time and I want to get my workout in and go. That's not the individual that comes to that class. They come to that class, yes, to get a great workout in, but they also come to that class knowing that they could impact a youth. You guys go ahead and talk. I'm going to plug my computer in. Go ahead and finish that thought.
Okay. So just like when you have a class of the general population, you spend time during the workout. If you finish the workout before someone else, your job is to encourage other people until they're done. It's that same mentality that any athlete who comes into the 3 o'clock has to understand. You're not here, if you're the general population, you're not here to come in, get your workout in, get out the door. You're here to come in to be part of the same community that we intentionally create at every single class that we have.
Yeah, for like the first
Matt, you just got to plug it in, man.
I'm trying to, man. Brother.
No, Debbie, that's a great point, though, honestly. So, well, and Matt brought it up too, I guess, but I don't think in really any of the classes, like the CrossFit classes, most people don't go there just to get a workout in anyway, right? A lot of these people, it's like, so one of the funnest parts of their day, and they just go and join the community. So I still think it's very similar to a normal class, but you have to understand that they're going to be looking, like the Expanding Horizons kids are going to be looking at you and your actions a lot closer. So it's just like, you have to be like a good, not like, I don't know, whatever, you get the point. But, and then like them too, seeing you work out with them, that just is growing their community. Right. So, I mean, and I'm sure you were going to get into that, Matt, but
no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a perfect
way
to put it.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So like, cause I mean, they're just looking at you. And then over time, that's just more mentors and more people that they have to look towards for that guidance and the, like, what do I do in this time? Or like you were saying earlier about how it helps you endure through those tough times. Like I feel like us CrossFitters really bond on that. Like, I don't think they're the only people, the Expanding Horizons kids aren't the only people that it helps through tough times, right? And adversity. Like, it helps all of us like that. So it's kind of that bringing them into like a good community to kind of help foster that a little more as well.
Exactly. And we all have those athletes in our gym, that the one that gets really, really mad and throws and chucks the jump rope across the room because they can't hit the numbers and they hollering and cussing. That's not the athlete that you want to come to that class. Or you're making sure that you're talking to that athlete going, this is different.
Right.
You know?
Because you may have had your worst day ever, but that 1 hour needs to be their best hour of the day.
That's right.
So whether you're coming in, and we always remember that, whether you're coming in and you're coaching that class or any of our classes, but especially if you're coming in as a fellow athlete to that class, you need to remember that this is probably almost every day the best part of their day.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
And that's not even like an understatement or anything. That's real.
That's right. That's right. And you know, it's interesting. We forget this, I think, from a CrossFit perspective and a coach perspective, even an affiliate owner, that that hour that those athletes come in, whether they're juvenile probation athletes or our normal athletes, should be their best hour. Any athlete, it should be there. They're coming to us for a reason. They're paying to be there. They're paying because they need structure, they need support, they need somebody to take them through a workout. They need, quite frankly, somebody to hand it to them so they can get their aggression out.
Right.
And then they go back into whatever environment they were before when they leave that, but they want that hour to just shut things down, right? And be totally zoned in there. And we all heard it at the end of our L1. We heard it again today. You know, Joe DeGain did a great job and said, hey, that hour that athlete comes in, it's your responsibility to change their world. It's your responsibility to make sure it's the best part. Even if you've had a bad day,
right,
you can't let them have a bad day. So you're just going to have to suck it up.
Right.
Make
Coaching
it happen.
isn't about you.
That's right. That's right. It's not about you. It's about the individuals you're touching every day. Right? So we invited our athletes in, and it's been awesome for the kids.
For sure. And the athletes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. I mean, there's been relationships formed. There's been job opportunities given from our members to those athletes. We've had members help other athletes get jobs at other locations in cases where they would have never had that opportunity before. One in particular, and I think we'll be able to hear his story internationally here really, really soon. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but he was a probationary kid. He came in, one of the first classes we had 3 years ago, and had zero direction in care.
In his words.
His words, not ours.
Right.
Zero direction, zero care. Didn't want anything to do with CrossFit, school, life, nothing. And he'll get to share his story, and I'm so excited for the world to hear it. I think literally that's what's going to happen. But here's an individual, as a 10, 11-year-old, was affiliated with a gang, was doing drugs, and just completely changed his lifestyle the second he landed on probation because he was in our class.
Right.
And his word, he's saying that. It's not like, oh, that's a nice story, Matt, you're just making that up. That's not our words. He just said it.
So paraphrasing conversation from this weekend, he came in to CrossFit, you know, just like any kid, did the workout, compliant, respectful, you know, basically doing his time, but began to form relationships with other athletes in here. One thing that we discovered with him is a work ethic. Like, something every parent should be proud of is this kid's work ethic. And it came down to he wanted a job somewhere. He needed a job. He knew he needed a job. He needed something constructive to do with his time, and develop that work ethic even further.
And that's kind of how we, you know, his particular story. I took him. We kind of laughed about it. I asked him if he still had the same boots and the jeans I bought him, because I wanted him. He needed money. He was trying to save up for his driver's license at that time and get a car or something. And I said, listen, why don't you come out? You're going to come out to work out to my dad's. We're going to cut wood. We're going to help my dad in the woods. We're going to cut trees down. We're going to cut wood. And I said, you have to understand that my dad has been around machinery all his life, and his death, like, turn the volume up on the mic and scream right in his face. That's the only way he's going to be able to hear you. And then put a chainsaw and a log splitter running, and the game's just about over. And he took that cue, and he and my dad bonded instantly, because he looked my dad straight in the eye and shook his hand and said, this is my name, and it's very nice to meet you. And that, my dad's old school. And he was like, okay, let's go to work, son. I'm like, get after it. So after that day, it was really easy to go, hey, when there was an individual that says, hey, I need to hire, I got a job opening. I'm like, I've got the kid for you.
Right.
And it's one of our probation kids.
And just like any kid, you need to interview.
That's right. Yeah, we took him through the interview process. Ryan's like, okay, yeah, just have him come by and I'll give him a job. I'm like, nope, that's not what's going to happen. I want you to call him in and I want you to interview. And the probation department got him shoes and dress pants and a dress shirt, and because he didn't have it.
Backing it up a little bit, when he went to work with your dad, he had one pair of tennis shoes, which wasn't the type of boots you were into the woods to cut wood, and no jeans. No jeans. No jeans to put on. So now this kid is going into a job interview. What do you need to wear? Dress clothes.
Dress clothes.
If he doesn't have a pair of jeans, do you think he's going to own a pair of khakis?
So the probation department hooked him up, and he went through an interview. And the interviewee, the individual that ended up hiring, was like, hey, he called me literally the second he walked out of his office. He called me and said, hey, I gave him an interview. Yeah, I'm not hiring. I'm like, Brian, I need you to understand. And he's like, no, he interviewed really well. Like, I'm thoroughly impressed. Great. And now he's been there 3 years, 2 years. He's been promoted 3 times. And, it's been
graduated high school, lives in his own apartment, pays his own bills.
Yep. Been life-changing.
He's doing better than me.
That's right, Ian. Take that.
That's right. Yep. So that's a little bit of the success story and a little bit about why we think it's really important. This program we have is really important. There's some other things there that we can dive into, and I know our time is kind of running short here. We're at the 40-minute mark.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep these in the 45 to 50-minute range. But that's a kind of a good start to explaining what, Expanding Horizons is, kind of how it started. One of the things that we want to talk about now, I think, is kind of what's to come. And I'm sure people listening to this, oh, that's a nice program you got there, but I don't have the time, or maybe I don't have the finances. I can't afford a coach to put on that time frame and that type of thing. So again, this is driven by the Mercer County Probate Court, and it's a government-funded experience. And we're a CrossFit gym, so we're here to pay the bills. We have bills like just everyone else. We're not a nonprofit.
Right.
So the Mercer County Court System, wrote a grant through DYS, Division of Youth Services, right? And they pay us for the class every month through what's called reclaim money. I won't go into that right now. You guys can look that up on the. So this is a program that's paid for by the state to us every month, which is a game changer in a lot of cases. And it's what we found that changed the outlook and the view maybe for CrossFit. CrossFit.
Along with the data.
Yeah, the data, there's no question. The 3 or 4 years, we've kind of waved the white flag and raised our hand and said, hey, we got a really great program here. We're changing the lives of youth and we're redirecting them. Why don't somebody listen to this? And I was told by an individual from CrossFit HQ, I know we're not supposed to call them anymore, but like, hey, the numbers drives action. And like, so it's a good thing we waited 4 years because the numbers are there.
Right.
And once they saw the numbers, the revicidity numbers, it was like, okay, this group's onto something here, right? And then the state got involved. The state of Ohio contacted us a month ago now, has it been? And said, hey, your success rate is unheard of, county to county in the state of Ohio. And we want to find out why. So unbeknownst to us, they contacted Mercer County and talked to Angie Gale, who is the director of probation, if you will. And she's got a different title. Close enough. Sorry, Angie. They contacted her and said, yeah, here's our rates. Here's what's successful. CrossFit, counseling. This is where our reclaim money goes. And here's the data. And the state was like, okay. we're coming to CrossFit Crave to figure this out. So they contacted us, and I still don't know his full title, but the individual that contacted us he's a
senior advisor for the criminal justice policy for the state of Ohio.
That one works direct for Governor DeWine.
For Governor DeWine.
Yeah, and he says, hey, he called us randomly. He's like, hey, I want to talk to you about this, and this is a great program. And I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, by the way, I
want to come visit.
Yeah, I want to come visit. And I've already talked to, I don't know, 6 directors inside of the state, director of health, director of mental health. You know them better than I do.
Director of Youth Services. Oh gosh, I can't remember them all now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people involved that we want to come visit. And prior to that, a month ago at the games, we were able to share this program just briefly at the roundtable event that they held there with Mr. Rosa and Dale King, our District 9 representative. And Dale kind of pointed out, hey, Matt's in the crowd, and he's got this great program, and it's called Expanding Horizons, works with juvenile. Just less than 2 or 3 minutes conversation, and that sparked interest from Mr. Rosa and a gentleman by the name of Ann Brill. And I guess before that even, we didn't even get into the scholarship. Man, there's a lot. We may have to carry this on for round 2, which we could do that. Okay. There's a lot of stuff here, CJ, we have to cover.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they're all at the same time happening simultaneously. Yeah. So I think for people to get an idea of what's happening now, everything needs to be explained.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think what we'll do, studio audience. That is really two plus.
My dog's sitting here. Good studio audience like that.
So I think what we'll do is break this up. So we'll go episode 1, expanding kind of foundations, where it started, why it started, where it's at, and then episode 2, like what is
the nitty gritty.
Yeah, what's happening, what's happened in the last month, and then what's about to happen going forward. Cool. CJ, any pardoning comments? Pardon? What am I saying?
Pardon.
That one. Parting comments?
No. So I was trying to think of that, but there's so much more that, like you said, that you can go into right now. So like,
I'll also be here for
I don't know, more to come, I guess.
Yeah, more to come.
Yeah. So it'll be good. Like, I think it'll be good to go into like the more nitty gritty kind of stuff, or what's happening right now, or what kind of like unpack some other stuff. But we've never sat down and talked about the whole program. I never realized how deep it is.
Yeah.
Like I know obviously everything about the program, but I had no clue that you could talk about it for 50 minutes and not have covered it all.
Yeah, not even scratch
for 4 hours, and we.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just like surface right now.
Okay, so that was episode 1. Episode 2 is coming up. Thank you for tuning in to CRAVING M.O.R.E with your co-host CJ,
Matt.
Maybe, I don't know, future.
Yeah, we'll see.
Ian, we'll see. This is a test run for over here.
See if I don't break anything. I might be tossed out if I break something.
We do have Steve. Steve couldn't make it tonight. Steve Harris, who we've had on several times. He's got a voice for radio.
He's got a great voice.
So a shout out to Steve. So, okay. All right, guys. That's it. That's what we have. Tune in
Cool.
next time.